Commercial airplane pilots, what's the closest disaster you've averted while on a flight that the passengers had no idea about? How often do these things happen? I'm an air traffic controller, and I've had my fair share of close calls. Less than a week after I got certified, I had the closest call of my career, and it's something I still think about every time I get behind the radar screen. It was the end of a swing shift on a Friday night. Swing shift at our facility meant we were working nights, and that particular evening it was just me and my watch supervisor in the tower. The sky was mostly quiet, a little patchwork of training flights and the occasional traffic pattern. We were waiting for a formation flight to come in and land for the night, a common occurrence at the base. A formation flight of two C-130s had been inbound, and everything was routine until the end of my shift. Near the end, we received inbound information on the formation, and a few minutes later, they tagged up on radar and were marked overhead for landing. For anyone unfamiliar with it, an overhead maneuver is a tactical approach that's common in the military. The aircraft start over the approach end of the runway at about 1,500 to 2,000 feet above ground level, make a descending 360-degree turn, and finish established on final. It's precise, predictable, and everyone involved knows the drill. Everything was normal until approach control called in with a medevac helicopter inbound, 15 miles northeast, carrying a critical casualty and requesting transition through our airspace. I had to make a decision fast. I looked at the positions of the two C-130s already in the overhead maneuver. The first aircraft had just started its base leg turn, and the second was trailing. I cleared the medevac through the airspace and told the approach controller, transition approved. You guys can keep him on comms. Our aircraft will be on the ground in a minute. I gave the landing clearance to the first C-130, glanced at the second, and assumed it would follow the standard maneuver. Feeling a little relieved, I turned to chat with my supervisor about weekend plans, letting my guard down. That's when the alarm sounded. The radar's PCAS, Proximity Collision Alert System, started screaming. I looked at the screen and froze. The second C-130 and the medevac helicopter were nose to nose, less than a mile apart at the same altitude. The aircraft had passed each other with the same altitude reading, which meant they had come within roughly 100 feet of one another. I keyed the mic immediately. Traffic alert! Traffic alert! The pilot responded with a short pause, then calmly, we see him. The targets passed and I exhaled, but my hands were still shaking. One small misjudgment could have ended disastrously. Afterward, I pieced together what had happened. The first C-130 had flown the maneuver exactly as published, predictable in textbook. The second had deviated from the expected pattern. It made a 180-degree turn, flew about 5 miles further than anticipated, then made a second 180 before descending. It was completely unorthodox. Meanwhile, the medevac helicopter was moving faster than I had expected, around 140 knots, which is significantly faster than the 80-90 knots I normally anticipate for these transitions. The combination of the second aircraft not following the standard maneuver and the helicopter's unusual speed put them on a near collision course. It was a harsh lesson in vigilance. First, never let side chatter distract you when you're responsible for aircraft. 1 second of inattention can become a life or death situation. Second, always anticipate deviations from the expected patterns. Even trained, experienced pilots can do something unpredictable. Third, never underestimate the speed of any aircraft in your airspace, especially medevacs or other mission-critical flights. Working at a busy training base like ours, incidents of this type weren't rare. I'd say we had 2 to 3 serious near misses a month, depending on how you define an incident. IFR versus IFR separation busts happened regularly, but usually we could correct them quickly with tactical turns and adjustments. It was stressful, but it kept you sharp. That night left an impression on me I've never shaken. The medevac pilot never knew how close he had come to colliding with a C-130, and the C-130 crews never realized how narrowly disaster had been averted. It was one of those invisible saves that no passenger or pilot ever notices, and yet the responsibility weighed heavily on my shoulders. Even now, years later, I replay that night in my head. I think about how small misjudgments, inattention, and assumptions can stack together in a high-stakes environment. It's why I never underestimate the importance of focus, communication, and anticipating the unexpected. The incident became a cornerstone of my training philosophy, a reminder that every blip on the radar represents a life in motion, and sometimes a few seconds of vigilance is the difference between routine and disaster.